stop freaking cold applying to 100 companies when you are trying to get a job in sales. The biggest mistake you can make is treating your interview funnel exactly like a sales funnel. That's what we're going to be talking about today. How do you land an interview with a blue chip top 10 company on your list? And here's the hint, it's not cold applying, even though that is one step of the process. And 3, 2, 1, let's get a job. Okay, so step number 1 is in fact to cold apply to the job. What will sometimes happen is a recruiter will catch your resume and they'll fast track you to the interview process, and then you don't have to go through the following steps. It is far easier to refer you to the top of the pile if your application is already in the pile. Step number 2 is, what are we actually doing to get our application flagged? So let's say that you've cold applied to Salesforce and you want to be a mid-market account executive at Salesforce. Typically what I like to do is I like to connect with AEs in batches of 5 to 10 plus the sales manager. So I'm going to find 5 to 10 AEs that are in the area that I plan to work for, and I will cold LinkedIn connect with all those people. From there, usually 7 or 8 will probably accept. And you're just going to send them a semi-tailored message that says something along the lines of this. I noticed that you've been at the company for 2 years. It looks like you've had a lot of success there, and I was hoping to get your advice. I just applied to the company, and I'm hoping to learn a little bit more about what it's like to be a rep there so I can come in prepared for the interview process. Would you be completely against me treating you for a Zoom coffee for maybe 15 minutes on a Friday when you don't have a million meetings on your calendar? From those 7 to 8, in my experience, you will usually get 2 to 3 yeses if you're sending a short, personalized note. You're going to send a slightly different note to the sales manager, which is, hey, I noticed blah, 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 the same sort of tailoring that you sent to the AE, send it to the manager. One thing that I know you probably care about as a sales manager is a rep's ability to prospect. So if nothing else, you could consider this my shot at that. And you said, hey, as I get through the recruiter screening process, would you be completely against meeting with me one-on-one before the official interview grill starts? So usually if you find the right hiring manager, when they get that message, they're going to flag your resume to the top of the pile. And oftentimes they won't take a call, but they will accelerate your path to getting a call with them. So now you have a couple AE coffee chats booked. Let's talk about how you nail the pre-screen screen. The first thing that you need to do is you need to demonstrate that you are worth the referral. The way you want to do this is you're going to structure this call in 3 parts. You're going to focus on what you're excited about. You're going to validate your assumptions on what it would look like to sell. Then you are going to make your ask. Here are a couple of buckets that you can use to get more tangible on why you're excited about the company. So number 1 is you could be excited about the stage that the company is in. Number 2, you could be excited about the industry. Number 3, you could be excited about the product or the problem that you're solving. And then lastly, number 4, you could be excited about the company itself and the culture. You could reference different things that your sales leader, your CRO, your VP of sales, or the CEO has even mentioned. You want to pick 1 or 2 or 3 of those things together and weave them into a story. So using my Carta example, I was like, look, I'm a finance background person, and the sweet spot for me is Carta's a Series C2 company, and that means you're in the growth stage, but it's still early enough that you can have an impact. And on top of that, I have a finance background, I worked in venture myself, and Carta sells to the venture space, and I couldn't imagine a job that I would more want than a place like Carta. So like my goal in this conversation is to understand how much of that is true and what some of the quirks are about the sale so that I can come in prepared for the interview process. So can I pepper you with a couple questions? That's your agenda. So the next, probably most important step is the questions that you ask. The best way for me to explain to you how to ask a good pre-coffee question is to simply invert the reason that you're excited and ask them to validate those things. I might say, hey, I'm super excited to work at a company like Carta because you all are Series C, Series D, etc. And oftentimes what I see is people are able to take on projects, whether it's building a new playbook, building collateral. Am I totally off there? When you ask a question and lead with the context of why you're asking that question, it shows that you've thoughtfully done your research on the company, but you're also thoughtfully evaluating the company instead of blindly jumping in. That's one bucket. The other bucket is to preview the sale. And by preview the sale, what you want to do is you want to preempt the objections that you are going to get as a seller and get their perspective on how they handle them. And by doing this, you're actually going to gain their respect because you're going to put them on their toes a little bit. So let's say, for example, I used to work for a company called Pave, and Pave sold to people in HR. And oftentimes people in HR don't have budget. And so my favorite question to ask would be like, hey, one of the things that I've seen about HR tech is it's really, really important to get good at multi-threading and getting access to power, because oftentimes you're going to need to get in front of the CFO to get budget approved for HR tech. I'm curious, like, am I totally off there? And what you're doing is you're basically saying, hey, I have a quirk or I have a suspicion on what it's like to sell to this persona. What's it actually like? The other type of question you can ask is a competitive question. So my favorite thing to do is look at PAVE versus X competitor. Go do some basic research and look at what the competitors are saying about PAVE. I actually did this at Carta, where there was a company called CapShare at the time that was competing with Carta, and it was saying that CapShare is half the price of Carta with all the functionality. So in the interview, I said, hey, I know this stuff is like not always true, and it's frankly pretty exaggerated, but CapShare, I was looking at their feature page, and a lot of the features look pretty similar in the way that they're described, and they're saying that it's half the price. How do you go about competing against those folks in a tough head-to-head with a founder who might be a little bit cheap? From there, the final step is making the ask. And the easiest thing in the world should be making the ask if you did step number 1, setting your agenda and why you're excited, and step number 2, asking good questions right. Usually what I like to do is I like to use what's called a humbling disclaimer. And so I might say something along the lines of, hey Nick, I want to make sure that I don't take up all your time. I guess this is a sort of awkward question, but I already sent in my application and I wanted to ask you, would you be completely against putting in a good word with the recruiting team for me if you felt like I came in prepared to this thing? And I have never ever had someone say absolutely not, no issue with that, if I've asked good questions earlier in the process. So if you do this, folks, you should be able to get your top 10 companies, you have 10 AEs per company, you have 3 coffee chats for each of those, and you should be able to get close to 5 to 10 interviews on your top 10 company list. This is one of many videos in the Advice from a VP of Sales series. I would check out the videos on how to pick a good company, and also if you're excited about how much money you can make in tech sales, there's some good stuff there as well. Go check those ones out. Peace out.